received the routine for uh, my UG courses, UG second year courses. Okay, so you must be understanding that there is currently an overlap of two semesters. So this is like the first semester for you, but for UG second year onwards, there is the second semester, and in that routine, uh, I have a class from 10 to 2 p.m. on Saturday. Okay, so if possible, I would like to have this class permanently shifted to the current time. Okay, starting from 7 or 8, preferably at 7. এই নিয়ে কিছু বলার আছে কারো?
No, sir, it's fine.
No, sir.
ওকে ওকে ওকে, ঠিক আছে, তাহলে নেক্সট উইকে আমরা চেষ্টা করব যে যদি 7টা থেকে নেওয়া যায়। আচ্ছা, regarding whatever we had discussed up to last class, do you have any question or any doubt? কারো কোনো অসুবিধা নেই তো? মোটামুটি ঠিক আছে
No,
সবার?
sir.
ওকে
Yes, sir.
ওকে, ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে, খুব ভালো কথা। সো টুডে উই উইল ডিসকাস অ্যাবাউট Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. I mean, you will find the details of whatever we will be discussing today. So rather, that is fine, but I still want to discuss it over here. So we will be discussing Euler-Bernoulli beam element. Okay. So before going into the details of the element, let us discuss about the beam theory itself. Okay. So in your undergrad curriculum, you must have heard about something called pure bending. Okay, and actually all the derivations that are there in your undergrad course, so that are based on pure bending. Now, what is pure bending? When a beam section, so imagine this is a small portion of the beam length. Okay, small portion of the beam length. Okay, when it is only subjected to bending moment, then in such situation, the beam is subjected to pure bending. Okay, but as we know that is not the case with a non-zero shear force. Okay, and the two ends are not going to be same, and they are also going to be the shear forces. Okay, so there would be both shear force and bending moment, and actually there could be a variation of the shear force as well. okay, depending on whether you have distributed loads. Sorry. So imagine this is an arbitrary distributed load q as a function of x, but if this one is a differential element across the length of the beam, so uh, in that we must show uh, a constant distributed load. Okay, because the element itself is infinitesimal, so you're not supposed to see any variation. Okay. Acha. So this is the beam geometry. So imagine, for the sake of simplicity, take the example of a cantilever. Okay, so it's a cantilevered beam, and I'm applying some arbitrary distributed load across the length. And what I mean by that is it can also be discontinuous and zero at certain locations. Okay, you might be noticing that I'm putting the arrows in the upward direction. Okay, because unlike what you have done your strength of materials course, here in finite element method, our convention would be that the positive x is positive, positive y is positive, and when it comes to moment and rotation, positive z direction is positive. Okay, so these are the positive directions. So we would assume that assuming everything to be positive, we would do the derivation, but if it turns out to be negative, we will put the negative value. Okay, so so unlike in beam theory where we consider the downward deflection to be positive, here we are considering upward deflection to be positive. Okay, so there is a distributed load. In addition to the distributed load, there is a concentrated force. I'm trying to make the case most general. So there is a concentrated force at the boundary. Let's call it P over here. Okay, and in addition to that, there is also a concentrated moment at the boundary, let's say. Okay, so let's call that m0. So there is a concentrated moment m0. Now what type of moment is this one? This m0 is essentially a couple moment. Okay, so have you heard this statement about a couple moment, that a couple moment is a free vector? Have you heard this?
No, sir.
You didn't? Okay. A couple moment is produced by couple of forces. You see, there is the forces which are equal and opposite but non-collinear, because if they are collinear, okay, they would be, and the forces must be acting on the same body. So if they are indeed collinear, they would be cancelling one another and keeping the body in equilibrium, and in that case that object is is basically a two force member. But then if you assume there is a non-zero normal distance between the two lines of action, okay, so this is a non-zero normal distance, so this is the moment due to the couple. Okay, and actually the total force on the body itself is zero, but the effect of these two forces, okay, I can show that with an equivalent sign. So the same body, okay, the effect of these two forces is only a moment, and that sort of a moment is called a couple moment. Okay, so this is basically in magnitude, it is f times d. Okay, uh, but then again I'm talking about a planar situation, but that the sense or the statement is same whether we are doing a 2D or a 3D problem. Now there is one more thing, that is if where should I show this moment? Okay, because let's say if I take this particular point P over here, sorry, I'll name it something else. Let's consider this point O over here, which is at an arbitrary location, and let's say A is a point on the negative F, so I can call it minus F, and B is a point on positive F. Okay. So so the net moment about O is essentially position vector of A with respect to O, and since O is the origin, I'm skipping the or should I put A with respect to O, position vector of A with respect to O, cross minus F plus position vector of B with respect to O cross F. Now cross product is a linear operation, okay, which means it allows so-called a distributive law. So basically, sorry, it's not minus F, it is actually plus F, right? So essentially I can write it to be R of B with respect to A cross F. Okay, basically this minus this. So position vector of A with respect to B, basically this vector. Okay, and in a way, uh, that product, that cross product, as you can see, is basically the in magnitude, that is basically the normal distance between point A to the line of action of F. Okay, so magnitude of the moment is going to be, let's say that distance is d, so the magnitude of this quantity is essentially F times d, and also it is also this the sense is counterclockwise in this case. Okay, so this couple, irrespective of, you see, this point O is arbitrary, so irrespective of where you take this location O, okay, you are always going to get, due to these two forces, due to this couple, okay, rather this couple of forces, you are always going to get the same moment. The magnitude would be same, also the sense would be the same, because it is always F cross RBA irrespective of the location of O. I mean, I can take O prime over here and O double prime over here, and for that matter, anywhere in the infinite space I can take O triple prime. Okay, and whatever O prime or O double prime or O triple prime might I take, I'll always get the same moment about the corresponding point. Okay, because in the end it is always going to be RBA cross F. Okay, and that essentially is the moment due to couple, and which means I can show this moment in the middle of the body or somewhere over here. Instead of showing in the middle, I can show it somewhere over here. Okay, and it still remains, I mean, there is no fixed line of action of the moment. If I think in 3D, okay, so these are the x and the y axis in the plane of the planar body, and let's say this is the z axis perpendicular to the body. Okay, so that moment has a fixed magnitude, which is Fd, has a fixed direction, obviously in the positive z. Okay, as it seems here, from here counterclockwise. Obviously if the direction of the F were different, it could also be clockwise, but in this example it is counterclockwise, so it has a fixed direction, fixed magnitude. Okay, so to give for any arbitrary vector, the minimum information that you are supposed to provide is its magnitude and direction. Those two are fixed over here, but for a couple moment, the next thing is not fixed, which is the line of action. I mean, you can take any line parallel to z axis. Okay, let's say passing through O over here, on intersecting the body at O, or somewhere over here intersecting the body at O prime, or somewhere in the space which intersects the plane of the body at O triple prime. Everywhere you are supposed to get the you can represent the moment to be acting anywhere. Okay, so the moment can be shown to be acting about any line of action that is parallel to z axis. So it doesn't have a fixed line of action. Okay, uh, that is not true when we are talking about, let's say, a force. For example, if there is a body and this is where the force is acting, okay, this line of action is fixed. If you want to show it to be replaced to somewhere else, if you just keep the direction and the magnitude and show it to be somewhere else, you also need to add some additional couple moment to take care of the fact that it is not originally acting along this line of action. So a force has a fixed line of action. A couple moment doesn't have a fixed line of action. Okay. Now all of this in relation to rigid bodies, because rigid bodies do not deform. So the only effect any force or moment is in relation to motion or equilibrium of the body. Okay, but in finite element we are only studying the deformable bodies, and with deformable bodies the actual point of application of whether a force or a moment matters. Okay, for example, if you are dealing with a rigid body, okay, whether you apply the force P at the bottom surface or at the top surface, it doesn't matter as long as you are applying along the same line of action. Okay, but let's say if you're working with a deformable body, it matters whether you apply in the bottom surface or in the top surface, because the deformations are going to be different. If you're applying at the top surface, this is how the deformation should happen. Okay, and if you're applying at the bottom surface, this is how the deformation should happen. What I'm trying to say here is if you are applying the at the top surface, you are expected to see more deformation at the top side. If you are applying the force at the bottom side, you are expected to see more deformation at the bottom side. Okay, so so that's the deal about free vector. And in case of a force applied to a rigid body, we call that a sliding vector because it can be shifted anywhere along its line of action in case of a rigid body. Okay, but when we are talking about deformable bodies, neither the moment, neither the couple moment, neither concentrated force is a free vector, or for that matter a sliding vector. They are all something called a fixed vector. এই পার্টটা কি বোঝা গেল কি বললাম?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Yes, sir.
আচ্ছা, so the reason I discussed all of this is because I wanted some of you to point out this being a couple moment, it's a free vector, and can it be shown anywhere on the body? Okay, but no, it cannot be shown anywhere on the body. It is a boundary condition. Okay, it is a Neumann type boundary condition, and how is it, we'll discuss in a minute. Achha. Okay, so we had just mentioned pure bending. Why did I mention that? Because all the analysis that we did, okay, although we in finite element method we appreciated that there could be shear force due to bending. Okay, and we also discussed about the shear stress due to bending. You might recall a formula like this: tau being a function of y, which is v q by I or something. Okay, I forgot the expression, but it is somewhat like that. Okay, so something like that is supposed to be the value of the shear stress as well. Okay, so anyways, the point is there is shear force, and pure bending only constitutes for a very small segment of deformation. Okay, for example, if I try to bend a cantilever beam with only a concentrated moment at the free end, okay, that's when the bending moment is constant everywhere, and then then the uh, then the type of bending is pure bending. Now that is not the case in general, but every equation or every expression for deformation that have been derived with your strength of materials course has been with the assumption of pure bending. It is because of the fact that the assumption is the the beam itself is a very slender member. What do I mean by that? That means uh, that means the if h is the characteristic dimension, h is much smaller compared to the length. Okay. Now, as the length becomes higher and higher, okay, compared to the dimension in the cross section, as you can see, the bending moment is obtained by integrating v with respect to x. Okay. Now, depending on where you are evaluating this bending moment, so the limit of integration would change. But you see, as the length is larger, the bending moment tends to be larger as you integrate from 0 to L. I'm taking the example of a cantilever and assuming you are integrating from right to left. Okay, so so as you integrate, okay, so you get more and more bending moment. Okay, so as you can see that the shear force is responsible for the shear stress in the component in the cross section, whereas the bending moment is responsible for the normal stress. And the normal stress becomes more significant when the bending moment tends to be higher and higher. Okay, and for very slender type of beams where the cross section is really thin, okay, so then the normal stress is more significant than the shear stress itself. Okay, so in that case you can neglect the effect of shear deformation. You see, shear stress is directly proportional to shear deformation or shear strain, where g is the shear modulus or the modulus of rigidity, and gamma this thing, okay, gamma is the shear strain, whereas the stress is related to Young's modulus times the normal strain. Now g and e are of the same order of magnitude. Okay, but if tau is much smaller than normal stress, uh, the shear strain is also going to be much smaller compared to the normal strain. Okay, and in that case you can totally neglect the effect of shear deformation, and that's what is essentially done with Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. Okay, Euler-Bernoulli beam theory. If you do want to take into account the effect of shear deformation, you should be looking for Timoshenko beam theory. And as such, if you look at any finite element tool, be it ANSYS or Abacus or Nastronaut pattern, whatever the case may be, at this point most of the softwares would provide you with Timoshenko beam element, okay, because it does give you more accurate results. Now, when does that accuracy matter most? As we have just discussed, that the Euler-Bernoulli beam element could only make sense in the domains of very slender beam. Okay, if such is not the case, if the beam section is thicker, okay, so in that case, Timoshenko beam theory gives you a substantially more accurate result. Okay, which means Euler-Bernoulli beam theory can no longer be utilized. So we need to go for Timoshenko beam theory, because the users use a finite element software like a black box. Okay, so incorporation of Timoshenko beam theory gives you this added advantage that you get accuracy even for a thicker beam section. So most of the AFI softwares provide with Timoshenko beam element, but then there is one more issue with Timoshenko beam element, that you cannot mesh an entire beam with a single beam element. Okay, you either need to divide that into multiple elements or go for a higher order of polynomial. So the basic version of Timoshenko beam element comes with linear polynomial. Okay, linear, but it gives you more accuracy if you move for quadratic. Okay, in finite element method, when we use Euler-Bernoulli beam element, that is by default cubic. No other variation is available. That is just cubic shape function, and that has certain advantages. You will see that some of the what we have studied in our undergrad is essentially Euler-Bernoulli beam theory, and therefore with cubic shape function, this Euler-Bernoulli beam theory gives us exact solution in many of the cases. Okay, we can for the time being stick to Euler-Bernoulli beam theory, and I might have discussed this earlier that even ANSYS offers a beam Euler-Bernoulli beam element. It is called beam 4 element. It is an archived element, so if you are using newer version of ANSYS, you will not see this element. If you are using versions such as ANSYS 11 to ANSYS 14, probably you will find beam 4. Beam 4 is not even in the help doc, not even in the element list. You can only use beam 4 element using commands, and then also you will get warning messages that this is an archive element and no longer supported, and so on. So with that, we would start discussing about Euler-Bernoulli beam theory first, and then we'll go for the element. Okay. Okay, let's for the time being take an example of a cantilever where we have uh, um, concentrated moment and a concentrated force at the boundary, and on the other side it is completely fixed. Okay, so on the left side you have W equal to 0 and W prime equals 0. Now both W and W prime are regarded as degrees of freedom. Unlike the bar deformation, where the first derivative uh, mm, was considered a Neumann boundary condition, here both of them are Dirichlet boundary condition. And W prime is regarded as theta. That means you see W prime is essentially the slope of the elastica, dW dx. Okay, which means as the beam deflects, let's say this cantilever deflects in this fashion. Okay, so anywhere if you are looking for the slope of deflection, okay, if you're looking for the slope of the deflection, that is essentially W prime. Okay, the tan theta. If this makes an angle of theta with the horizontal, then this tan theta is W prime. But then we are assuming this W prime to be really, really small, so much small that W prime is essentially theta. Okay, we don't expect the slope to be of 15 degree. Okay, we expect it to be much smaller than 5 degrees. Okay, so this is the domain where tan theta is theta. So we have 2 degrees of freedom, W and theta, anywhere along the axis. So the total beam deformation can be represented with two things. One is its vertical deflection, upward or downward. Again, upward is considered positive, and the slope at that point. So both of them are considered the degrees of freedom. Okay, and similarly, you see the corresponding Neumann boundary conditions are force and the moment. Okay, so moment is associated with rotation and force is associated with vertical deflection, linear deflection. Okay, so in this, so this is the boundary condition with okay, this is the boundary condition with cantilever. When it comes to a simply supported beam, okay, so pinned over here and a roller supported over here. Okay, so in this case the boundary condition is that that W equals 0 over here and W equals 0 over here. Okay, at both the ends W is 0, and there is no boundary condition on W prime on either side. Okay, so that means I can apply moments at both locations, M1 over here and M2 over here. Okay, so I can apply Neumann type boundary condition for rotation degree of freedom at both ends. There is Dirichlet type boundary condition on deflection at both ends, which means it is gamma t for theta at both ends. It is gamma u for w at both the boundaries. Okay, but at both the boundaries it is gamma t. You might remember what are gamma u and gamma t. Okay, so gamma u is where you apply the boundary condition on the degree of freedom, and gamma t is where you apply the boundary condition on the force or the traction or the moment for that matter. So because at none of the boundaries the theta is fixed, they automatically become gamma t for theta. That means you can say that there is moment boundary condition, okay, at both ends. And if indeed no moment is specified, you can say that the moment is there but the value is 0. Okay, let's say m1 could be 0 and m2 could be some value uh, m0. Okay, so you look into that later. Okay, so by the way, what you can do is you can put your attendance in the chat, write your name and roll number and specialization. Okay, so now if I look at the equilibrium of this tiny element which has a dimension of dx, okay, and which has a dimension of dx, so I can write that summation of forces in y direction should be equal to 0, which says integration, not integration, q times dx, okay, plus v plus dv minus v equals 0, where v is the shear force. Okay, and so that basically implies dv dx is minus q. Similarly, we can take moment of all the forces and the couples. Okay, about any point, I choose this corner, left bottom corner, and I'll call that O. So I'll take the moment about O. So that moment is going to be, first of all, you would simply need to add the couple moments, m plus dm minus m, then dx times v plus dv. Now this v force passes through O, so I shouldn't be bothered about that. And the next thing is due to the distributed load, and the distributed load can be assumed, can be equivalently represented. If you have done the study of distributed load, it can equivalently be represented in the middle because it is uniform. So you can think of a q dx is acting in the middle, and this distance is dx by 2. So the moment due to the distributed force is again counterclockwise. If measured from O, it is obviously going to be counterclockwise. So 1 by 2 q dx squared, and that equals 0. Okay, but if I look at this, okay, and simplify this and neglect terms of Okay, so we would neglect the terms involving two differentials. For example, dx times dx or dx times dv. If I neglect terms of the order dx squared, okay, and consider the other terms, then I have dm minus v times dx, or rather plus v times dx, equals 0. Or in other words, dm dx is minus v, or dm dx is minus v. And if I take another derivative, d2m dx2, okay, that is going to be minus dv dx, which is going to be q. Okay, so this is the equation you would try to work with. Okay, now right now, just like the bar formulation, we have related to let's say the stress or the force with the distributed load, but we are supposed to relate the deflection and rotation with the distributed load. Okay, now you must be already familiar that m is ei w double prime. Okay, and this comes through an extensive derivation from whatever solid mechanics textbook or the strength of materials textbook that you have followed. Okay, I don't want to bring in that. Okay, essentially this is actually m is actually ei by rho. Okay, rho is the radius of curvature of deflection of the beam. Now rho is supposed to be 1 plus w prime squared times 1.5 to the power 1.5, or 3 by 2, divided by w double prime. Now the fact that w is much smaller, okay, so much small that it can be equated to w is basically dw dx. Okay, it is so much smaller than 1, then that w prime, which is tan theta, can be equated to theta. And if you take a square of that, for example, imagine w is 0.1, which is not very small. We would expect w prime to be even smaller than that. But if it indeed is that value, then w prime squared is 0.01. When you add 1 with that, so it is going to be 1.01. And then if you take a square root, it is going to be 1.005. Okay, approximately. So that is much smaller compared to 1. Sorry, that is very close to 1. And in the limit, w prime is reduced further. In the limit w prime tends to 0, it tends to, this expression in the upper side tends to 1 very rapidly. Okay, now if I so essentially the upper portion or the numerator can be taken as 1. Okay, so rho is effectively 1 by w double prime. Okay, so again w double prime could be small as well. The curvature itself could be small. So this thing is curvature, so that could be small, but the fact is it is not summed with 1. Okay, so essentially it should not be neglected. So this essentially boils down to this expression eiw double prime. Okay, now rho has other relations. For example, strain is y by rho. Okay, and strain is also sigma by E. Sigma is the normal stress. Okay, and E is the Young's modulus. Okay, so so essentially epsilon is m by my by ei. Okay, and as you might already be familiar that this portion is basically the bending stress sigma. Simply divide that by E, you will get that expression. Okay, so now if I substitute the expression for bending moment, then I have this expression ei w double prime whole double prime equals q, and boundary conditions are, please note I am putting double prime on the entire thing within the parenthesis. So in essence, I'm implying that the Young's modulus could be varying along the length. Obviously, primes are all derivatives with respect to x, so I'm only talking about variations along x. Same applies to the area moment of inertia. Okay, but if indeed they are uniform and homogeneous, so we can put quadruple primes on W. So I can also write this to be ei quadruple prime on W equals q. Boundary conditions being that W equals 0 and W prime equals 0 at x equals 0, and at x equal L, the bending moment is whatever that has been applied at the free end. So basically ei W double prime is m0. Okay, and as we have discussed earlier that V is essentially minus dm dx. So I can say ei w triple prime, since the shear force at this boundary is going to be P, so it is going to be minus P. Okay, so for the cantilever beam, this is our Dirichlet boundary conditions, and these are our Neumann boundary condition. This is our gamma u, and this is our gamma t. Okay, and the differential equation along with the boundary conditions form the strong form of this problem. Okay, so this is the Euler-Bernoulli beam formulation. Okay, এই অবধি কারো ডাউট আছে? বোঝা গেছে এই অবধি?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, now let's try to write the, so we have written the strong form, and I would also like to write the potential energy form. Okay, so for that I need to minimize with respect to W the potential energy, which is strain energy minus work potential. Now you see, again, let's go back to our cantilever beam, which has this arbitrary distributed load Q of x and a concentrated force P and a concentrated moment m0. So the work potential is pretty straightforward. You see, the distributed load is vertical in nature, okay, and vertical force produces work with vertical deflection. Okay, so QWdx is the work done by Q. Okay, just like the beam element. Next thing is P, again the vertical force. It does work in the vertical direction with the deflection in the vertical direction. So plus P times W at L, and then M0 times W prime at L does the work done in the, sorry, work potential is the work potential in the in this system. Now for strain energy, at first I'll have to integrate within the area the strain energy density, and then I'll have to integrate that over the length, okay, so that I get to integrate strain energy density over the volume. First over the area, first across the cross section at any arbitrary x, and then along the x-axis. Okay, that way it's a complete volume integral. Now the strain energy density is as we are working with linear elastic material, okay, with Young's modulus. So if this is stress and this is strain, the strain energy is the area under the curve, and since the slope is Young's modulus, it is half of E epsilon squared. The strain energy is half of E epsilon squared. Now what is the expression for epsilon? The expression for epsilon is my by EI. Okay. So this is the expression for strain, my by EI. Okay. But then M itself is EI W double prime. So half E, then E squared, I squared, W double prime squared, Y by E squared, I squared. So this cancels out, and so does this one. Okay, basically your epsilon or strain is Y by rho, or Y times W double prime. So that's what happens. So W double prime squared and Y squared. Okay, now if I integrate the strain energy density with respect to area, this is what I'm supposed to get. So half E comes out of the integration, because Young's modulus is assumed to be constant across the cross section. Then you are integrating. W double prime squared y squared. Now please understand that this W is the deflection of the so-called neutral axis, okay, or the elastica. So that is the deflection of somewhere within the cross section, and it is actually not a function of the coordinate along the cross section. Let's say this is the beam cross section, okay, and this is where the neutral axis intersects. It's a deflection at that location and not some arbitrary location in the area. So therefore it's not a function of position within the area. So that also, this W double prime squared also comes out of the integration squared. So what remains inside is y squared dA. Y squared dA is by definition, so this is y. So y squared dA is by definition is the same I that we are talking about. So it is EI W double primes squared, okay, with the area integration. Next, we would integrate that with respect to x. So the expression goes EI W double prime squared dx 0 to L. So this is what the strain energy looks like, 0 to L half EI W double prime W double prime. Why am I writing it like this? Because I want it to look like A W W, which is a symmetric bilinear form. Okay. We have discussed this earlier, the comparison between the potential energy form and the weak form, the variational form. And next comes whatever is there in the work potential. Okay. So that essentially becomes the linear operator on W. Okay. And if V is the variation of W, that implies V equals 0 in gamma W and V prime equals 0 in gamma W prime. Therefore we have the following V statement, that 0 to L EI W double prime V double prime dx equals 0 to L QV dx plus P VL plus M0 V prime L. Okay, and boundary conditions, W equals 0, W prime equals 0 in or at x equals 0. So this thing becomes the variational statement. Okay, this is a V statement. এই পার্টটা কি বোঝা গেল?
Yes, sir.
স্যার এসিডির ইন্টিগ্রেশনে ডব্লিউ প্রাইম স্কয়ারটা কেন ইন্টিগ্রেশনের বাইরে এলো একবার বলে দেবেন?
হ্যাঁ, অবশ্যই। স্ট্রেন এনার্জি ডেনসিটি, তার মধ্যে হ্যাঁ, স্ট্রেন এনার্জি ডেনসিটিকে আমরা যখন উইথ রেসপেক্ট টু এরিয়া ইন্টিগ্রেট করছি, নাও থিংক অ্যাবাউট দিস, W is a deflection. W is not a deflection of the anywhere in the cross section. Okay, W is the deflection of the neutral axis. Now the neutral axis is a so-called centroidal axis. You might remember. Okay, so passing through the centroid of each cross section. Okay, so it is basically that W is the deflection of not an arbitrary location on the cross section, but of the centroid of the cross section. Okay, and that is not a function. If you are to move, that is not supposed to change. Okay, when you are performing the integration with respect to the cross section, that means if you are only moving within the cross section, that value is not changing. Okay, which means let's say এই সৌরভ একটু তোমার মাইক্রোফোনটা অফ করবে? Okay, so which means let's say if you are in West Bengal, doesn't matter whether you are in Durgapur or in Jalpaiguri, the state capital is still Kolkata. Okay, but if you move to, let's say, Maharashtra, the state capital becomes Mumbai. It's something like that. So in that integration, so if you can look into that integration, so in this integration where we are performing double integrals, first with respect to the area and then with respect to x in the expression of strain energy. So in the first integration, the x value is a constant. So you can think of the state is a constant. You are not going out of the state, but you are moving inside the cross section, or you are moving inside the state. Okay, but if I now ask you the coordinates, or for that matter longitude and latitude of the state capital, that becomes a constant. Okay, so therefore the deflection of the centroid, okay, that also is a constant, whether you are at the top of the cross section or at the bottom of the cross section. So while integrating, you can keep that out of the integration. এই পার্টটা কি বোঝা গেল?
হ্যাঁ স্যার বুঝেছি।
Okay. আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, এই তো হলো। এইটা আমরা পেলাম হচ্ছে from potential energy statement. We got the V statement. From the minimization statement, we got the variational statement. Achha. So now let's say if we look at the strong form, okay, which says EI W double prime, and I don't feel the need to put the two more primes with W. I can keep the everything under derivative sign, but we'll just remember this, that that the beam itself is uniform and homogeneous. Okay, and that equates to Q, or the differential equation. And this is a strong form with the boundary conditions that W0 is 0 and W prime 0 is 0. EI W double prime L is M0. EI W triple prime at L is minus P. So that thing we had already written. Now what I'm doing is, this statement is true for any arbitrary V. We are supposed to mention this. Now what I'm doing is I'm multiplying this whole thing with V. Okay, and then EI W double prime whole double prime minus Q, and integrating this 0 to L dx. Okay, and then I am adding or rather subtracting P plus EI W triple prime times V at L. So this whole thing, acha. So this is the this triple prime thing is a Neumann boundary condition on deflection. Okay, and that this double prime thing is a Neumann boundary condition on the rotation. Okay, so the idea is that we should check that in each expression, okay, each expression, the order of derivative, uh, cumulative order of derivative is a constant. Okay, you see over here it is 3 plus 0, so it is 3, but then you must argue that within the integration it is quadruple prime. Okay, so fourth order of derivative, and this one is 0. How is that consistent? The consistency lies in the fact that the expression in the left is being integrated with respect to x. So post integration, okay, the order of differentiation would be reduced by 1. Okay, or you can think of in this way, this is what happens within the body and this is what happening in the boundary condition, and at the boundary the order of derivative should be 1 order less. Now I know that I am supposed to put a negative sign over here, okay, but why I knew that is comes from the practice. Okay, I have already done this exercise, so I know this. So the next thing is, and this is true for all v, okay, and v equals 0 and v prime equals 0 at x equals 0. Okay, because x equals 0 is gamma w and also gamma w prime. So what I just did here, I know which one to take positive and which one to take which expression, so I just took these two expressions, but to which one should I put a positive sign and a negative sign, that I already know. Okay, or I can do that exercise in my mind. Okay, but if you look at the expressions carefully, you'll also know what to put where. Okay, so the next thing I would do is I would integrate by parts the first expression, and that is supposed to give me EI W double prime, then another prime. Okay, here I'm also not supposed to write triple prime. It is the derivative of the bending moment, so EI W double prime is the bending moment, and then another prime evaluated at x equal L. So it is EI W double prime evaluated at L. Sorry, it is EI W double prime so it is EI W double prime whole prime. Okay, that's what is shear force. So EI W double prime whole prime times V at L minus EI W double prime whole prime V, everything evaluated at x equals 0, then plus this thing integrated, the first term integrated, so 0 to L V taken derivative of, and this thing Acha, this must come with a negative sign because we are doing integration by parts. So it is coming with a negative sign dx, and then vq dx, and then these few terms. Okay, you see, uh, the next term is minus p times v at L. Then the next term is minus ei w double prime whole prime times v at L. Now this term cancels with the first term. Okay, and my choice of negative sign and positive sign over here was according to that. Achha. And in the next term, what I'm doing is I'm putting ei double prime evaluated at L minus m, then v prime evaluated at L. Actually, I don't need this thing inside. Achha. So I can now perform another integration by parts for this term over here. Okay, and that turns out to be minus ei w double prime v prime evaluated at L plus ei w double prime v prime evaluated at 0, then eventually plus 0 to L v double prime ei w double prime dx. Now of which the first term would cancel with this term. Okay, so in the end I will have the following expression, which is 0 to L ei w double prime. By the way, this is true for all v. So 0 to L ei w double prime v double prime dx. Okay. Achha, by the way, v at x equals 0 is 0 and v prime at x equals 0 is 0. So for about 6 terms get cancelled out. So this thing becomes the equal to integration vq dx, then plus p times vl plus m or m0 times v prime at L. And this is nothing new. This is the expression that we had already obtained. Okay, so what I showed you here, that we would obtain the same variational statement had we moved from the potential energy statement or from the strong form. Okay, we are still going to get the same variational statement. Okay, this essentially shows us the consistency, and if you practice on your own, you would actually be able to appreciate the variational statement. Okay, and this is true for all v. Okay, for that matter, from this variational statement itself, we can use Euler-Lagrange equation and arrive at the strong form itself along with the boundary conditions. Okay, so in that case we would be integrating by parts to move the derivatives from v to w. Currently, from strong form to weak form, we move derivatives, orders of derivative from w to v. We could be doing in reverse. Okay, but this entire exercise could be done with the without making the assumption that the material is homogeneous, that is Young's modulus is constant everywhere, and the beam is uniform. We can do without that assumption. But why should we make that assumption? Because that makes our integration a lot easier. The strong form and weak form are still consistent, okay, even without the assumptions of homogeneity and uniformity, but still we need them to be able to integrate this very easily. Okay, now you proceed for the now we can proceed for the finite element statement. Okay, so what we can do is we can do that in the next class. And for today's class, I don't think I can give you any assignment. Okay, but what you can do is you can always go through the finite element formulation of beam element in advance. Okay, and possibly I had given you if you look at the class note, okay, you will probably find there is an assignment regarding the use of Rayleigh's methods and Galerkin's method with beam Euler-Bernoulli beam formulation. Okay, so you can go and try that also as an assignment. So you can so we used Galerkin's methods and Rayleigh's method for bar formulation. Okay, but you can try that for beam formulation as well. Okay, you can try up to quadratic shape function. Okay, and try to see what sort of answer are you getting. Okay, so you can also do that, quadratic, cubic, whatever suits you, you can try that. Okay, তো আজকে তাহলে এই অবধি থাক।
স্যার বলছি এগুলো থেকে কিরকম নিউমেরিক্যাল বা মানে কোয়েশ্চেন আসবে তার জন্য কোনো বুক বলে দেবেন?
এর জন্য দেখো আমার মনে হয় ইউ ক্যান ফলো এনি টেক্সট বুক, মানে বেলেগুন্ডু চন্দ্র পুতলা থেকে পড়তে বিষয়টা সুবিধা হবে, বাট আই উড সাজেস্ট ইউ ক্যান গো থ্রু জেন রেড্ডিস বুক। ওকে, ইউ ক্যান গো ফর দ্য এক্সারসাইজ এন্ড এক্সাম্পলস ফ্রম দেয়ার। আরেকটা জিনিস বলি, আনলাইক ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং মেকানিক্স, ওকে, এখান থেকে আমি তোমাকে হয়তো I cannot give you a wide variety of numerical problems. Okay, the problem being that this is a subject that is best implemented through computer programming. মানে বুঝতে পারছো তো, ধরো আমি তোমাকে একটা জিওমেট্রি দিলাম যেটাকে you are supposed to divide into 4 or 5 elements, then you are supposed to find out the element stiffness matrices and then assemble into global stiffness matrices. Imagine those elements are of different lengths. Okay, so all of this, okay, could be it's not best done when you are using pen and paper and calculator. Okay, it is based done to computer programming. So the idea of this course is to enable you, okay, not with the programming part but with the theory part of it, to be able to program finite element code. Number one. Number two is, if you're using a finite element software, so in that, okay, this course is supposed to enlighten you enough for you to not be simply using the finite element software as a black box. Okay, so you get some insight into the finite element tool before using it. So there is two purposes for that. If you for your project or for future study, if you do finite element coding, this gives you the theoretical background for that, the simplest version of it. It gives you the background of that. And number two, if you're using a finite element software, it gives you the enlightens you somewhat in terms of the what's going inside of the finite element software. Okay, and even in the semester exam, if you have seen the previous year's question, I actually give you the shape functions, possibly the stiffness matrices. I only want to see the concept of it. Okay, I would probably be giving very simple problems. Okay, even if I want you to use let's say assembling a couple of beam elements or bar elements, okay, to form a global stiffness matrix and solve a problem, I would probably be giving you the expression for the element stiffness matrix of the beam itself. Okay, So this, you can, if you go through the question paper of the earlier years, it would probably be helpful.
স্যার এই
Sir,
কোয়েশ্চেন
like
পেপার
the
গুলো কোত্থেকে পাবো?
কোশ্চেন পেপার এটা কি সেন্ট্রাল লাইব্রেরি থেকে পাওয়া যায়? আমার এটা নলেজ নেই। আমার ধারণা মানে স্টুডেন্টরা অন্যান্য বার পেয়েই যায়, তারা কোথা থেকে পায় আমি ঠিক জানি না। এটা মনে হয় সেন্ট্রাল লাইব্রেরি থেকে পাওয়া যায়।
স্যার আমরা
এটা একটু
সম্ভবত
হ্যাঁ
লাইব্রেরির
বলো।
অ্যাক্সেস পাবো না এখন, মানে ইলেকশনের
আচ্ছা
পরেই বলছে লাইব্রেরি অ্যাক্সেস দেবে।
আচ্ছা 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 আচ্ছা। But I cannot personally share any question paper.
স্যার
So in
আপনাদের
that
সেরকম
case,
মানে ই বুক নেই, মানে যেরকম আপনি একটা অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট অ্যাবাউট এ নিউমেরিক্যাল, তো ওইরকম টাইপের সলভ এক্সাম্পল বালা কোনো একটা ই বুক থাকলেও একটা আমাদের রেফারেন্স
না
পাওয়া যায়।
সেটা আমার কাছে নেই। সলভ এক্সাম্পলের কোনো ইবুক আমার কাছে নেই। বাট what you can do is you can go through any textbook. Okay, you might as well go through Jane Reddy's. Okay, in Jane Reddy's book, what you can do is you can try, look at some of the examples, and after that you can try some of the problems from the exercise. Okay, and if you're stuck, let me know. I don't think there should be any reason for you to be stuck. Although we have only covered some basic parts only with relative scalar kings and bar formulation, and today we are doing the beam formulation. Okay, so go through that.
হ্যালো স্যার।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, বলছি যে মানে এই সাবজেক্টটার মানে এটার মানে অ্যানসিস বা ম্যাটল্যাবে মানে মানে সফটওয়্যারে ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করার কি কোনো স্কোপ মানে এই মানে আমাদের এই ক্লাসের মধ্যে কিছু কি আছে মানে
না,
যদি
এই
এটা?
ক্লাসের মধ্যে তোমাদের এক্স্যাক্টলি সফটওয়্যার ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করার জায়গা নেই, কারণ যেটুকু আমাকে কভার করতে হবে, ইট ইজ বেসিক্যালি গোয়িং টু বি দ্য থিওরি পার্ট। এবার ধরো তুমি দুটো জিনিস বললে, একটা হচ্ছে একটা ফাইনাইট এলিমেন্ট সফটওয়্যার অ্যানসিস, সেখানে ফাইনাইট এলিমেন্ট সফটওয়্যার তুমি ইউজ করবে, ঠিক আছে। সেখানে সেটা শেখার জন্য তোমার ইউটিউবে যথেষ্ট টিউটোরিয়াল আছে, এক নম্বর। দু নম্বর হচ্ছে যে ইভেন ইফ ইউ আর লুকিং ফর দ্য ক্লাসিক এপিডিএল ভার্সন অফ ইট, দেয়ার উইল বি a lot of materials for that as well. তো আমার মনে হয় না সেইটা এই কোর্সে করার কোনো জায়গা আছে, কারণ থিওরি পার্টটা কভার করতে যথেষ্টই টাইম লাগে, এক নম্বর। দু নম্বর হচ্ছে তুমি যেটা বললে ম্যাটল্যাবে তার মধ্যে এফি টুল কিছু আছে কিনা আমি জানি না, আমি কখনো ইউজ করিনি, কিন্তু আই হ্যাভ ইউজ ম্যাটল্যাব ফর কোডিং, আই মিন ফাইন্ড এলিমেন্ট প্রোগ্রামস। ওকে, তো এবার এবার ম্যাটল্যাবে আমি কি শেখাবো? ম্যাটল্যাবে তোমাকে কোডিং শেখাবো? দ্যাট ইজ নট দিস কোর্স অ্যাবাউট। ওকে, if you know any form of coding, either in C or MATLAB or whatever, I'm sure after a certain point you will be in a position to um, mm, mm, program your own code. I mean, for the time being you can try, let's say if you know any basic programming software. So I gave you one assignment involving a rotating bar. Okay, so you already know what is the expression for a quadratic bar element. Okay, now if you make it a program like where a function file creates the element stiffness matrix given the dimension of the element and what order of element that you're using, whether a quadratic or a linear bar element. Okay, let's say that gives you the element stiffness matrix. Then there is another function that assembles the element stiffness matrices into global stiffness matrix. Okay, and there should be another function which gives you the element force vectors from the distributed load, which is essentially the angular velocity. Okay, so from that what you can do is you can get the global stiffness matrix and the force vector, and then you will be having boundary conditions. So you can write a program on your own to be able to solve that. Okay, so হ্যাঁ, তুমি এটা নিজের মানে নিজের ইয়েতে করতে পারো, নিজের ইচ্ছে করতে পারো, কিন্তু ব্যাপার হচ্ছে যে এই কোর্সের মধ্যে সেটাতে এমফাসাইজ করার আমার কোনো জায়গা নেই। টু
মানে অ্যানসিসটা তো ইউটিউব থেকে করা যায় মোটামুটি নাকি? অ্যানসিসটা ইউটিউবে মানে টিউটোরিয়াল দেখেও তো মানে
হ্যাঁ, there should be sufficient tutorial in YouTube for you to learn about ANSYS.
ওকে স্যার।
Okay. ওকে, তাহলে আমরা নেক্সট ওয়েডনেসডে আমরা তাহলে মিট করি আবার 9টার সময়।
স্যার এই যে সিম্পলি সাপোর্টেড বিমের যে এক্সাম্পলটা নিয়েছিলেন,
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ,
so at the mid span the deflection is maximum, so the first derivative of the deflection will be 0. So can that be taken as directly boundary condition?
তুমি যেটা বললে সেটা, আচ্ছা বলো তো এটার ক্ষেত্রে হবে কিনা সেটা। এই হলো তোমার সিম্পলি সাপোর্টেড বিম। এক্ষেত্রে কি মাঝখানে ম্যাক্সিমাম রিফ্লেকশন হবে?
না এর ক্ষেত্রে হবে না, মানে ওই পার্টিকুলার কেসের জন্য
মুশকিল হচ্ছে যে তুমি যে ফর্মুলেশনটা করবে দ্যাট শুড বি আ জেনারেল ফর্মুলেশন। ওকে, টু বি ফ্র্যাঙ্ক, আমার ধারণা তোমাদের মধ্যে যারা ফাইনাল এলিমেন্ট আগে করেছো তারা হয়তো এটা খেয়ালও করবে যে ধরো you cannot solve this problem using a single Euler Bernoulli beam element. Since we have not discussed the finite element formulation of the beam element, so that's why I didn't go into the details of that. You cannot simply solve it using a single beam element. You're supposed to take two. Every time there is a concentrated force, you are supposed to break the geometry. Okay, even for bar elements, let's say there is a bar. Here I am applying a force of P Newton, and let's say in the middle I'm applying another force of 2p Newton. Okay, although there is only concentrated forces, that means the problem can be solved only using linear bar element. There is no distributed load. Distributed load Q is 0. Okay, so that tells you that the solution is linear. It's not actually linear, it's actually piecewise linear. And actually when you are doing the finite element formulation, you're supposed to break it into two elements, element number 1 and element number 2. Here you show a force of 2p, and here you show a force of p. Okay, বোঝা গেল? Okay, okay, any other question? Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll meet on Wednesday.